Hello, welcome to the Flow Show. Sarah Felice here, and we have
Tim Glover here.
And today we have another deep dive conversation about flow in this new world, and we hope you join us. We look forward to this show. That was a quick, nice little intro.
I thought that one through because I'm thinking these little intros have to be short as opposed to doing a big long somethingness. So I did some shortness thing.
Well, today we also didn't name the show, but I really enjoyed your LinkedIn post that you did yesterday. And I thought we would talk about the 3 acts. I'm actually just going to pull it up right now here so that we can read it to set the context for the deeper dive discussion of the show today. So I'll read it here. What if you don't really know who you are? What if the rest of the world doesn't know who they are either? What if, because we don't really know who we are at all times, we doubt ourselves at times, especially when the world pivots? What if the most important question in our life is, and will forever be, who am I inside? Every choice you make is a who choice, because every choice you make is a reflection of your identity, who you are. You choose to wear the clothes, eat the food, relate in this way to that person because you identify yourself, who you are, with these choices. Every single choice happens because you have a need to either change or at least expand your identity in some way. And what if the journey of life is a 3-act play of self-discovery that starts with Act 1. This is who I thought I was. Act 2. This is definitely who I'm not. Act 3, this is who I authentically am. So what inspired that post?
And the last little bit that you didn't read out loud is what if our entire species is actually in the process of pivoting from Act 1 to Act 2.
Oh yes, this is the important part.
The important bit, just to actually piece the thing together.
Piece it all together.
Yes. So the journey. The journey is I've discovered it, and then I've discovered it as a function of working with clients and just watching and listening their journey and kind of putting the context together is when I come into a situation, or when we come into a situation with a client, they have really never started with who. There's Simon Sinek has done a fantastic book called Start With Why. And I see it used all over the place. So why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you working at this company? Why? It's like, why? And it's a really great intro to the context of pivoting on a question that's very of self. And I remember when he came out with that, and I thought, I wish I had actually come out with the book Start With Who in around the same time. And that wouldn't be the first time that I actually wish I had actually come out with a book with these contexts. But the Start With Who, every choice we make, in my observation, every single choice we make is a who choice. Because the reason we actually do anything is because it's all about identity, who we identify with and who we actually identify ourselves with, as a function of I drink with this glass of water, and I put a little thing around this so I know it's mine, and I have 2 glasses of water, but that's me. I identify with that. That's something that is very, very unique to me. Everything that comes in our life is a reflection and a mirror of us. So we've talked about this in the past, in episodes in the Flow Network, on the Flow Show. Our world is 100% subjective. Science and the education system, and therefore business, has taught us that our world is 100% objective. Imagine the confusion that creates. Because if you actually are taught from childhood, and your parents were taught from childhood, the stuff that matters is out there. It's your relationship to the person you work for. It's relationship to money, which is out there. It's relationship to the clothes you wear, where you choose to live, all those types of things. Everything is outside in. And psychology is premised on the notion of your world is 100% unique to you. It all starts, ends, revolves around your inner triangulation with the outer world. And it's my observation that the world is just waking up to this, because this is the first time we've had a significantly big crisis, certainly in my lifetime, that's a well-being crisis. It's not a wealth crisis. So wealth crisis being the typical, the economic falls out and we have a recession and then we have the recovery. This is a very, very different, this is just a very different dance right now, because we have a well-being pandemic and they don't really understand what's causing it. We have had deaths as a function of it. We've had isolation as a function of it. And the other thing that because I just wrote a post this morning about the idea of, what if the isolation is exactly what we need as a species to actually cause us to go inside? Mm-hmm. So we're being forced literally to actually, okay, you guys all step away from, whatever it is you were doing. And we've had to, it's forced reflection. Mm-hmm. And what if reflection is kind of, life actually is ebb and flow, and no one teaches us how to ebb. Because and if it's all about just hitting the gas, if ebb and flow is what we're all about, which I come to understand we are, the ebb is like the in-breath, and the out-breath is like flow. And so it's the in-breath, if we actually are quiet enough and we take the time to regenerate, which my friend here, Sarah Di Felice, is freaking a master regenerator. I've never, just amazing. We take the time to reflect, all of a sudden we get back in touch with our heart-centric intuition, right? That's my rhythm. This is who I am. All right, so we need to pivot. I need to pivot. Let me actually start to move in this direction or that direction. That's the massive benefit of the pandemic, and that's why I think we're actually moving from Act 1 to Act 2, who I thought I was, mm-hmm. and it ends up I'm not, and who the police force is, who women are, the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, all those types of things are putting us into who we're not. Mm-hmm. So that we can actually have this, what the freak is going up? I need to support this. I need to get involved. I need to do this. I need to reflect. I need to now start to become more human.
Yes.
Huh.
How about that? Well,
how long was that? That was quite the rant.
That was a good little rant and a summary of what we've been about from day one here at Flow Network. And we've been talking all along about the notion of the rise of yin, where we've been more in this patriarchal yang type of energy, where we haven't really honored all the yin qualities, and that rejuvenation being one of them. And because we have had in our who we thought we were phase of life, had the head down and go and push through life, and numb what my insides are telling me, and because I got to fit into what society is about, and we just are all at this place of explosive things have got to change. And there's been many of us who have had that understanding of things have got to change. There's many of us that have had this understanding that things will change, whether we like it or not. This is how the world works. We're always changing and evolving, but to honor more of the yin qualities, and it's not that one's better than the other. It's about bringing them more into a balance. And I know for myself, coming from, who I'm not, it takes time to regenerate and go within and slow down and do more of the nurturing things, more ceremonious things, looking at the importance of ceremony and bringing people together with the power of our intention from the inside out, and the power that has. And so I believe that, everything happens for a reason, to hold that understanding that what is going on right now is to wake us up to who we authentically are inside, but then collectively as a society.
I like this, a society.
The society.
Because I'm as you were talking about that, the piece that I was reflecting on is, so having grown up myself, I went to school, got a Bachelor of Math, and went downtown Toronto and worked as a CA, CMA, CPA, which really means really grinded it out. Really push. You got an agenda, move, here's your targets. You go out there and you just push. And the regenerative phase, the ebb phase, was, okay, if you actually hit your numbers, you're going to get enough money that you can actually go, and you're living beyond your means anyway, but you're going to get the next money. If you get a bonus, then you can actually go on a nice vacation where you're supposed to regenerate. Well, I oh my goodness, I can remember this, which I have not reflected on for years. But when I was relatively young, if you go on a 7-day vacation, it usually takes to the 6th day by the time you kind of calm down enough that you can actually start to ebb and flow with whatever's happening on the island. If you're going down to the islands or going over to Europe or whatever the case may be. And then and the only time it can ever afford the time to go away for more than a week, that's, oh my goodness. And by the time you get to the second week, I'm so not used to, in the second week, just chilling, I start to get all antsy.
Yeah.
Because I got so much energy. I got to do something. Mm-hmm. And that's also not observing ebb and flow. We've now had 8 weeks, or I don't know how many weeks. It's been a few weeks, 8 weeks. That's a long vacation that we've all been forced into reflecting. Like, not that we're all reflecting, but the potential of reflecting. So we've kind of, you know what, this whole rhythm, this new rhythm here, there's a lot to be said for this. This is actually pretty cool. And then what if this really is the opportunity to actually start to pay attention inside and start to listen, what is it I feel like doing right now? What can I do right now, rather than freak out? And unfortunately, a lot of people, what they're going to do, and they're going to do exceptionally well, is freak out, because it's just too much, both reflection time, and once you reflect and the stuff that comes up, who you're not, comes up. And if people don't have skills to be able to go and deal with that, or even know that that's how this whole self-reflective process works, I suggest that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to struggle as we move through this, in large part because they're starting to get in touch with those aspects of themselves they've never paid attention to, who they're not, that have been screaming at the top of their lungs saying, hey, I'd rather live this other way rather than the way that I've been living, or I feel like I've been forced to live.
I used to teach that example you brought about the vacation. I used to teach this meditation 101 program many years ago. Well, meditation was still just coming on the radar, and I'd use that as an example of, you have this one frame of time where you go on vacation and you're allowed to just be at that point, but it takes you almost the whole time to unravel, to be able to rest. And it's about bringing more of that balance into our everyday lifestyle structure, and also that the big pivot, as we keep talking about, when we're pivoting from this, act 1, and then the act 2 and act 3 of who we thought we are, who we're not, and who we authentically are, is in the who we're not, we've gotten so used to navigating based off of the outer world and navigating based off of what society tells you. So you're only allowed to rest and regen when you have your vacation or on the weekends, and people look forward to those times, versus navigating from your insides and realizing the productivity that can occur from a balanced state, and also the regeneration that can occur from that balanced state. And so now, meditation and these types of things, I said back then, will become something that is as obvious as important of brushing your teeth, that it's something we need to be able to do every single day, and then eventually be able to catch ourselves when we do get out of our center. And because for the people that haven't really even thought about, there's an inner world and an outer world, and there's reflections, and life is a mirror, and life is a metaphor. So that person who is reflecting to me something that triggers me or something that angers me is something inside of me to either say who I am or who I'm not. So yeah, it's very interesting times for those of us who've been doing this work for a long time, to keep our center, but also what is the best way to show up and share this type of information for others.
Yeah.
Which is what our kind of dance has been with Flow Network all of this time.
Yes. Actually, I mean, just even again, I'm thinking back to the vacation, like vacation. How many days vacation do you have? You start off in work and you only get a week, and then you go to 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And how I just reflect on my own experience with that. Oh my gosh, I've really made it when I can actually take 3 weeks during the whole year or 4 weeks during the whole year where I actually have a chance to self-reflect in the last day of whatever time frame I've assigned for vacation. Like it's an insane way. It's an insane way to live life. But hey, the vast majority of people, that's how they're living life. That's if they can take a vacation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember after corporate and just different observing, life and society and thinking, like, what if we came here on this planet so that every day could be a vacation? Right? What if, and this is a part of the narrative of what Flow Network is about, how can we live and sustain in this flow, this ebb and flow, like honor the ebbs as much as we honor the flow, so that we are living in a society that is back to its simplicity, where we're not trying to chase something outside of us, whether that's time for ourselves, whether that's money, whether that's whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you were referencing Carolyn Mace's, I'm not sure how you say her last name, MYSS.
I'm never sure either. I think it's Mice. Carolyn Mice.
So she was reflecting on the fact that, I mean, we really can't control anything. We can't even control our in the moment reaction to things. All we can do is learn to be in charge with actually checking in and then doing what we can with practice of self-reflection to create some distance between the spark and the flame. So there's something that sparks me and gets me and then catches me, say, off guard. And then I actually react. And we have a lot of people reacting right now. The most obvious one being around George Floyd's situation, and as well as just, I mean, we had the Me Too, and it was interesting. I found myself looking through some of the posts and then weighing in and trying to actually introduce some of these new contexts. And the context is never actually free, because during the Me Too movement, when there was just a lot of reactivity as well, hey, you're a man. Mm-hmm. You're a white guy and you're a man. What can you possibly have to actually help us on the Me Too? Okay, so we got Black Lives Matter. And they do. Hey, you're a white guy. How can you actually weigh in? And I found myself this time not waiting to actually be invited in, just saying, okay, we need to actually show up, having reflected a little bit on how do I contribute to those conversations, because this is life. This isn't this isn't a staged rehearsal. This is the real deal. And going through it seems to me, living life consciously and purposely, you got to slow down a bit to regen, to be able to even show up in a meaningful way. Else, like, you're just flying all over the place.
Right. That's if we're in that reactivity and in the anger, we don't give ourselves that space to listen, so that we can respond. Because I mean, if we go out with anger, we'll be met with anger, and nothing really changes in that space. So it's not to not feel our anger. That's so important, because it acts as that catalyst to take that action. But the key and the component that we have been missing with this more yin quality, going back to that, and the more slowing down and regenerating, is listening, not just to our inside and what our hearts are really asking of us, but to listen to one another, to listen and to say, I'm coming into this and I'm coming from, yes, my biases, but I'm here to listen and I'm here to learn. We're doing that with ourselves is so key, and that's the importance of meditation, but also then going into our communities and asking and listening to, what is the market's needs? What is the language that what is the narrative that we're using? How does that need to change? How do we need to change our conversations? How do we come together from this sovereign understanding that we all have 100% subjective realities. And, you know, at the end of the day, I do believe we all want the same thing. We all want peace. We all want to feel like our life is a vacation. We all want to feel provided for. We all want to feel safe. And, you know, how do we come together from a place of listening, like unlearning, remembering?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the reference to yin is rising. Yin is in my understanding is more heart centric than head centric. The head and the gut tend to actually be the yang orientation that we've all grown up with. And you know, you got promoted if you actually did well at your job. You actually got, you know, you passed to go from grade 2 to grade 3 back in the day when you got passed. Whereas now I think everyone just gets a pass and they just keep on moving people through the system. And the idea then is, if we're actually trying to reflect on who am I, why am I, where am I, there's a real big difference between reflecting from the head about that versus reflecting from the heart. And it's the answers we start to get is in the ebb and flows when we're actually chilling. And that's the whole idea with mindfulness, meditation, qigong, any of the ancient practices, is to get us inside our body. And where's our locus? Where are we orienting from? Are we orienting from the head? Which is fine, because there's yogic traditions that have us orient from the head. Yogic from the heart, from the feet, from wherever. But be conscious that that's where you're orienting from. And in my journey, when I first got introduced to all these types of things, it was very head oriented. I was extremely head, and then I went to more of all the people I studied with, it was more of a hara, gut orientation, both of which are yang. And I remember running into people who had actually were being taught by other sensei around heart centered. And I remember trying that for a time and thought, geez, that's very confusing. It's very emotional. But it was my journey. Then I finally came to integrate all of those types of things. And everybody's journey is unique to them. But the point is just to start it. And if we have to be forced as a species, and this is what we've got. We've been forced as a species. Don't go out. Don't come back until you actually are a nicer person and you're actually more from a heart. Now, that's not likely. You know, no one's actually said that specifically. But what if we were to actually reframe this whole pandemic and this whole isolation that we've just been through in that frame of reference? Because the other thing that I think is actually highly probable, because so many people are talking about it and so are the medical practitioners, is to actually find a cure for COVID is going to take between 2 and 3 years. And maybe even fast track it a year. But it seems like any kind of virus that comes on like that has a season. And it is the season of spring. So there's just so many people who are actually in the frame of reference with an expectation that that's actually going to happen, that it's likely to generate that type of a phenomena. So what if this next time when we actually go through this, we really consciously go into the heart space? And what if, in fact, there's what contributes to a collective solution to this situation? And what if that's part of this dance that we're all going through that none of us is controlling? Because if our world's 100% subjective, who's really controlling this navigation? And is control even a relevant context or concept?
Right.
Because it's pretty easy to make the argument when you're living heart-centered that I'm not controlling this. I'm doing the best I can to be in charge of how I respond.
That is our own, as we say, it's our only thing we can control is how we respond. But in our society, we haven't given importance to our emotional center, like how to deal with our emotions. And in fact, especially for men, it's been something that has been heavily suppressed. Like,
yes,
you know, boys don't cry and you got to be a man and all the different things. Even to women, that the same thing occurs. And so we're very fresh as a society to be able to talk about these types of things, and also have the practice to an understanding of how our nervous system operates, and the importance of being able to, because that's ultimately our response is having that mastery over our nervous system. And if we're orienting just in the head, where the amygdala is, which is our reptilian brain, the fight, flight, freeze, then it's so easy to just constantly live in that state and have no awareness of our nervous system and or our emotions. And so we project them on others. And I find the same thing. Like I'm, learning, well, how do I want to show up as a leader? What language can I use when others might be taking the context of what I'm saying, just hearing it from their perspective, right? And so there's a lot of that happening that I see through comments of people, everyone wanting to share their opinion and their perspective. But where is the response coming from what energy? Because as you kind of just said, we're floating on a space on a rock.
Yeah.
That is, how did we really all get here? And I think we said this on last week's episode. If not, we certainly have said it before, that crisis, and Bruce Lipton talks about the same thing in his Spontaneous Evolution book. It's crisis is what is needed in order to get us to the next evolutionary point of what we are. And once you start that self-reflection practice, that's what awakens our consciousness to have these higher perspectives about what reality is, and to understand that we create our reality from the inside out. That's going through the acts, what we're transitioning to Act 3. And so if we're all, honoring this going within, and honoring the listening, and honoring, listening to our heart, even moment to moment, we'll create this spontaneous evolution of a heart-centered reality where we're showing up in our true nature, which is abundant, which is health, which is cyclical, which has ebb and flow.
Yes. It's interesting because and I've made this analogy in the work we've done for forever, is that it's not until you're flat on your ass, or maybe on your back, and you're in the hospital, or, where physically you're not able to actually get out. So we go, spiritual, I think it's spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. It's when it finally hits the physical level, and you go, well, yep. I mean, you're on your butt because you just got hit, you're in a car accident, or you freaking hurt your arm, or whatever, or if it's more acute, you find yourself in a hospital, whatever it is. There's the self-reflection opportunity. Because we say this all the time to clients, if you're not able to do anything else, and because you won't listen to whatever the little tap on the door is saying, Tim, turn right. And then Oprah Winfrey, I remember, did a fantastic, I don't know if she got it from somebody else, but she said, when you don't listen, the universe actually will throw you a little pebble and kind of bonk you in the head or in the heart or wherever. And you don't listen, the pebble gets a little bigger. It's like a rock. And then it actually becomes, if you're still not listening, a brick. And then it becomes a bunch of bricks, then a whole wall, then a whole building falls down on you, because you're gonna have to listen to move forward. The fates lead them who will, them who won't. It drags. It's a old moment.
And the importance, because I've had that many times as well, and just have different clients and partners who've had similar things, poison ivy all over the body, that'll put you in a space to listen. And but if you're in that space from a victimhood, you lose the power of the lesson of that.
Yes.
And the empowered stance and it gives you that openness to take that deeper learning in the lesson, which is what we talk about as the swamp, which is where you find your superpower. So it's being able to be in that situation and this is where the compassionate and being in the heart space is to understand, there's something bigger at play. There's something bigger going on. So from that stance, I can be an empowered, and then I can know that I'm going to learn something through this. I'm actually going to have, some bigger breakthrough at the other side of this. And that's what always gets me through challenging situations.
We developed the 3 reframe questions some years ago. And the very first question, especially when you're dealing with some kind of a crisis, is to actually ask the question of self, what's good about this? Because what's good about it actually moves you from the amygdala into the executive center. Now, if you're really lucky and you have a practice, it'll move you from here down to your heart. And the second question is, how did I contribute to this? But really owning that you contributed to it in some way, because you probably weren't able to hear the signs when it was a little pebble. You had to wait for the big bricks and whatever. That's why that pebble story is actually important. At what point in time are you going to wake up? And then the third question is, how can you actually contribute to a solution? And we use this, and we just use this all the time in every situation with every client. And usually they start off pretty pissed because, well, I didn't do anything good with this. I go, okay, so is that an empowered stance or is it a victim stance? And I really refuse to actually adopt or encourage people to adopt a victim stance. So you need to own, how did you contribute to it? Like even if you're driving the car, you got hit. Because there's a lot of car accidents, which are metaphors for, where did you get hit? You hit in the side, the back, the front, move forward more, you're going too fast, take a turn, however you want to interpret those metaphors. But those types of practices become really, really critical in navigating crisis, because it's very empowering. It's not, we're using imagination, again, to actually redefine who we authentically are. That's Act 3.
And the big pivot of this is to truly own and understand that we contributed to everything. We contributed to, we are the creators of our reality. We create from the inside out based on our emotions and what we're broadcasting and emitting from our physical essence. And from who we, Act 1, who we thought we were, was very unconscious. And this is the point of the evolution, right? That we're waking up and being conscious of what reality is and this fact and this notion. So those are powerful questions, even to, what we're seeing in everything with society, no matter, what your perspective is on everything, is, what's good about this? How did I contribute to this, to everything going on the planet right now? And then how can I contribute to a solution? And just not on the macro scale of like trying to fix the world, but the most powerful is the inner. How can I contribute the solution first in my surroundings, in my society, even if it's just your family?
Yes, it's interesting because if it's 100% subjective world, it's a lot easier to actually own the fact that you create everything in your reality through your perspective.
Yes.
This is a good thing, this is a bad thing. It's based on your perspective. This is, and usually rather than what's good about this, goes, what's crap about this? And there's where we go, because we actually get triggered in the fear response. And we go, and that then lays a path for us to create more of a reality that's in the crapper. So it becomes very easy to own. We create our own reality. We create the good, the bad, the indifferent, based on who we think we are. And how we frame who we are. It becomes fairly simple. It's just a couple set of reflect questions that are needed. And, oh my goodness, a bit of work on the whole, let's do some meditation, mindfulness, and then start learning some techniques on how to inspire the brain. That
bit. I know it sounds simple in logic, but it is a challenge. And again, this is why I feel community is so important, because we can't do this alone. And we're not meant to do it alone. And, I like the Shakespeare quote, really spoke to me whenever I heard it many years ago, that nothing is neither good nor bad, but thinking that makes it so. And this evolutionary jump point is getting off the game of duality, of judging right and wrong, and being able to see the whole for what it is, and having that stance within ourselves. Where am I still judging? Where am I judging myself? Where am I judging the outer world? If we are truly the creators of our reality, there really isn't anything to judge. It's using the contrast as the navigation for what it is that we do want, and keeping our focus on that versus the other. And we're coming up to a wrap, but I wanted to bring up because I'm really excited. We're going to do a SWOT for the species video series. We're going to record that, which is going to be so important. And I think that's kind of our contribution, at least that we feel from Flow Network, will be some sort of a solution, just to have us reflecting and creating a new narrative for the Act 3 that we're all pivoting to. And so we have the first series that we produced on Flow Network is the Flow Responders, which is like a mini docu-series of how Tim and I, met last April, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
And we just had an alignment of vision and what we saw was going to probably happen in the world. And so we went out and did these workshops at WeWork, and just, as I was calling, documenting evolution, just documenting our coming together and, hey, should we work together? What would this look like? And episode 6 is really powerful. We did a SWOT for the species: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this was well before COVID came about, and it's very powerful, and it's just 6 minutes. So we're going to actually dive deeper into the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we see. Right?
Yes. I mean, that was such an interesting time, because that was just less than a year ago, but certainly well before this pandemic happened. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was just looking to see if there was dates when these types of things were actually recorded. Yeah, because the cool thing about these documenting evolution, which you introduced me to, which is just a big freaking shout out to Sarah D's freaking brilliantness. It's by looking in a rear view mirror that we can actually make sense of the trajectory. That's how we navigate complexity. You can never tell where to go with any degree of accuracy until you actually reflect. You stop, you hold yourself accountable, reflect on what's happened. Mm-hmm. Where's my historic trajectory? Is this on the trajectory I want? Yes or no? And documenting it is brilliant because it brings to light some of the choices, good, bad, or ugly, that are made in the moment with the information and with the bandwidth that we have at the time. And to be able to actually document that and then watch those types of things, and especially the SWOT, is just profound. Your screen's frozen. I'm not sure if then I need to actually now sing a song. I'm going to sing a song. Here, sing a song of screen unfreezing.
I'm losing my connection. I guess this is the end of our show today, if you can hear me still.
Yeah, I can now.
You can now. Okay.
Yes, I'm doing a slow outro. Because we're over the 30-minute mark. And when we can't have you, I'm thinking it's time to actually now flow over and out.
Let's do it.